This happened to me about 5 years ago, and even now I struggle to believe it was real. I wasn't alone when it happened though, and that's what makes it even harder to dismiss. It wasn't just my imagination, others saw it too. It was late September, and my friend Lucas had convinced a group of us to go check out this abandoned motel on the edge of town. The place had been empty for decades, a sprawling 2-story structure with boarded-up windows and a sign out front that had lost most of its letters. The rumors about it were wild, that it was a front for some underground crime ring in the 70s, that a murder-suicide happened there in the 80s, or that the place was just cursed. It didn't help that everyone in town called it the Hollow Motel. Lucas was the kind of guy who lived for this stuff. "Come on," he said, "it'll be fun. It's not like we're staying overnight." There were 5 of us: Lucas, me, my girlfriend Mia, her sister Claire, and her boyfriend Aaron. We were all packed into Lucas's beat-up SUV, bouncing down a dirt road under a sky that was quickly turning to ink. The motel came into view suddenly, as if the trees had been hiding it. It was larger than I'd imagined, with vines creeping up its sides and a sense of wrongness that made my stomach tighten. It wasn't just a dilapidated building, it felt off. We parked a little ways off the property and Lucas handed out flashlights like we were heading into a cave. "Stick together," he said, a grin plastered on his face, "and don't chicken out." The first floor was relatively uneventful. Dust and debris littered the halls and the air smelled of mildew. Most of the doors were locked or barricaded from the inside, but we managed to find a few open rooms. They were all the same: peeling wallpaper, broken furniture, and silence so heavy it felt like a physical presence. Mia stayed close to me, her hand clutching my arm. "I hate this," she whispered. "Let's just go." "Just a little longer," Lucas said. "We haven't even checked out the second floor." That's when things started getting weird. As we headed up the staircase, Claire suddenly froze. "Did you hear that?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. We all stopped, our flashlights sweeping the area. At first, there was nothing. Then, faintly, a sound like footsteps coming from above us. Probably just an animal," Lucas said, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. We pressed on, though Mia was practically shaking at this point. The second floor was worse. The air was colder, the smell stronger. It felt like the building was watching us. The hall was lined with more doors, most of them closed, but one was slightly ajar. Of course, Lucas had to check it out. Inside, the room was empty except for a single chair in the middle, and, this part still gives me chills, a pair of muddy footprints leading from the doorway to the chair, but nowhere else. There were no footprints leaving the room. Lucas laughed nervously. "Someone's playing a prank," he said, but he didn't sound convinced. We left the room quickly, and that's when we noticed it. Every door in the hallway was now slightly open. I swear they had all been closed when we walked in. Claire grabbed Aaron's arm. "I don't like this. Let's get out of here." "Yeah," Mia said. "This isn't fun anymore." Lucas tried to argue, but even he seemed unnerved. We started heading back down the hall when the lights of our flashlights began to flicker. First Aaron's, then mine, then everyone's. We stopped, huddling together in the dim light. That's when the whispering started. At first it was so faint I thought it was the wind. But it grew louder, a cacophony of voices that seemed to come from all around us. It wasn't just one voice, but dozens, overlapping and incomprehensible. My heart was pounding, and I could feel Mia's nails digging into my arm. "Run," Claire said, her voice trembling, and we did. We sprinted down the hall, not caring about the noise we made. The whispering followed us, growing louder and more frantic. It felt like the walls were closing in, like the motel itself was alive. We barreled down the stairs, nearly tripping over each other in our desperation to escape. When we burst out into the night air, it felt like we'd broken some invisible barrier. The whispering stopped immediately, leaving only the sound of our ragged breathing and the chirping of crickets. We didn't speak as we piled into the car and sped away. But it didn't end there. When I got home that night, I found a piece of paper tucked under my windshield wiper. It was a torn scrap, yellowed and brittle, with the words, "You can't leave," scrawled on it in shaky handwriting. I thought it was a prank at first, but then Mia called me, panicked. She'd found the same note on her kitchen counter. Claire and Aaron got theirs too, and so did Lucas. All of us, the same message. For weeks, strange things kept happening. Doors would slam shut in the middle of the night. Electronics would turn on by themselves. I'd hear faint whispers when I was alone, just on the edge of my hearing, but when I'd turn to listen, there'd be nothing. The worst was a few weeks later. I woke up in the middle of the night to find someone standing at the foot of my bed. It was too dark to make out their features, but I could see their outline, unmoving. I was paralyzed with fear, unable to move or speak. Then, just as suddenly as they'd appeared, they were gone. We tried to talk about it as a group, to make sense of what happened, but it only seemed to make things worse. Lucas stopped answering his phone. Claire and Aaron broke up. Mia started sleeping with the lights on, and I can't say I blamed her. Then one day, Lucas disappeared. His car was found abandoned on the same dirt road leading to the motel, but there was no sign of him. The police searched the area but came up empty. It's like he vanished. The rest of us tried to move on, but there was always this feeling of dread, like we were being watched. A few months later, I decided to drive by the motel, just to see if it was still there. The dirt road was overgrown, as if no one had driven down it in years. And when I reached the spot where the motel should have been, there was nothing but an empty clearing. No building, no sign, nothing. I don't know what happened that night, and I'm not sure I want to know. All I can say is this: if someone ever suggests exploring an abandoned building, don't do it. Some places aren't meant to be disturbed. Some doors should stay closed. And sometimes, when you leave, you don't really leave at all.